So, I want to talk a bit about, the power of imagination and how imagination can serve God's purposes. So, I've got a dream of screenwriting. I just want to learn how to write great scripts, because I can't control a career, whether or not I get a career in the film industry, but, a great script is something I can control. Now, there's something really worth talking about. So, as you probably know, Harry Potter is now going to become the seven books. They're going to become a TV series, and a lot of their fans have been upset about this because some fans, I don't know how many, because the films are so beloved. A lot of people are like, we can't see anyone else playing these parts. How dare you? How could you reboot this into a TV series? What is the point of this? No one asked for this. It got me thinking. Harry Potter. Among the most beloved books of all time. But here's where I go. It's one of the most beloved one of the most beloved books of all time. But what else is beloved? Charles Dickens books, Jane Austen books, and those have been remade again and again. Let's go to make it simple. Oliver Twist. I love Oliver Twist. I love Oliver Twist. But man, there've been so many great versions. The David Lean version is my favorite. A lot of people's favorite. But then you got the musical Oliver. You got some great TV versions. You got one where Andy Serkis played Bill Sikes. That was awesome. So there's great versions. And I think there's a blessing to have different versions. I don't think one version, doing a new version is not going to take away from the great stuff in the original film series. So that's my thoughts on that. So it's going to happen. They're going to make a TV series on the seven books of Harry Potter. Each season based on one book. And I've got some ideas. If you're going to make a TV series, because the films were so beloved, the TV series has to do what the films could not do. And I've got some ideas. You got to explore things that you couldn't have explored in 2-hour films. And I think it's a good idea that, you can not try to tread on the films by doing something really new, really fresh. The best thing that comes to my mind is, Silence of the Lambs, and Anthony Hopkins did such a great job playing Hannibal, but then they did the TV series of it, covering similar stories, but it was so fresh, so different. You couldn't compare. You can't really say which one was better, the two Hannibal shows. Same with, and I think this Harry Potter series has got to do the same thing. So I've got an idea, okay? So episode 1, you see this guy flying, it's just a night sky. You see a guy flying on a broomstick. You're not sure it's a guy flying on a broomstick at first. You're like, what is it? Goes closer. You see, yeah, it's a dude flying on a broomstick. And then he gets a call, picks up the phone, and is like, oh, hello, love. How are you? It's like, oh, James Potter. Oh, James, dinner's ready. And he flies down to his house. No one sees him. And he gives his wife a hug. His wife's been looking after their newborn baby. And, he's like, oh, how are you? How'd it go today? And he's like, you know what? I think my Quidditch days are behind me, but, it's good to still do it every now and then. Don't want to lose that. Just because I'm getting older, more responsibilities, don't want to lose that. And then his wife, Lily, goes, oh, James, stop sounding so much older than you are, You're not that old yet, And just having, that kind of British humor, like, stop whinging about how old you are. You're not that old yet. Kind of something my girlfriend does that to me sometimes. And just, and make it very clear, this is a story about two parents with a very young son, and it's about these two really sweet parents. And you do the first episode, maybe the first 40 minutes, it's like them doing very normal things that any young parents would do. You got scenes of her taking him to a daycare center, taking him on a walk in the park. But then you introduce little magic things, They're in the park and she makes an acorn fall out of the tree. Maybe not an acorn, but whatever it is. Little magic things she does, Or she levitates a book, You make a very normal thing that any young mother would do. You make it seem like a very normal kind of story of a young mother taking care of her child. But then you add a little magic. To, oh, that's interesting. This magic, that's something a little special about this. And that first episode, you make it clear, this is a story of two really lovely parents. And I imagine there's a scene in that first episode where James has got something on his mind, and Lily goes, "What's wrong, Don? I just, and the dialogue pans out where it becomes clear. James was such a big deal in Hogwarts, and he doesn't want his son Harry to feel like he has to live in his shadow. And at this point in the story, that's the biggest problem. That he was a champion in that school. He was a champion in Quidditch. I think it was a chaser, and the biggest thing on his mind is like, I don't want my son to feel like he has to live in my shadow. And he's like, I don't want my son to feel that, because Lily and James Potter are they're a big deal in Hogwarts, and they don't want their son to feel that that's a pressure on him. They don't want him to feel that they don't want him to feel that their son Harry is a failure if he fails to resemble the brilliance of his amazing parents. And at this point, that's the biggest concern of these two lovely parents. And then Lily's like reassuring him, because he's got this thing on his mind, and because he doesn't want to pressure his son. And Lily's like, oh, we don't know that, and I'll put a line in where James is like, what if he can't play Quidditch for quids? And then Lily's like, yeah, well, fair enough, but what if he can, And that's what it's about. And then James will and then Lily says, well, what if he is good at Quidditch? What will you do then? And James is like, well, I guess I'll teach him how to enjoy it. I want to teach him to not feel the pressure of the games. I want to teach him how to just enjoy the game and not feel the pressure and the weight of responsibility, because it all means nothing at my age, And he enjoys teaching, those championships, those trophies, those championships. They don't mean anything when you have children, have a family. And these are the James's feelings, and he wants to let Harry know that, when he teaches Harry how to play Quidditch, that Harry doesn't have to feel. He doesn't want Harry to feel. He wants Harry to enjoy the game and have fun, more than feeling the weight of pressure of having to win and all that kind of stuff. And you go through this in the first episode. I think this would be a great idea to go through that in the first episode of this Harry Potter series. And that's all it feels like. The biggest problem in the world is that they don't want their son living under the shadow of the brilliance of their parents. And then the inevitable happens. He who must not be named, he comes through their door. And, the first episode of this show, you start the show by really highlighting that this kid has really special, lovely parents who really love him. And they're so attentive to their child. They care so much about him. You see him, Lily takes him to the park. There's, when no one's watching, there's these little magic things, makes him experience those little moments of magic. And you feel this kid's going to have a really special life. And that special life with special parents he was going to have is taken away from him. You feel that in the first episode. The he who must not be named comes, and he takes away that future, and you really grieve. I love that first movie, directed by Chris Columbus. Steve Kloves wrote the script, but man, I think you really you make the first episode feel like this is the story of James and Lily Potter, until it's not, because he who must not be named just took it away. And then it ends with Harry, a kid who's lost his parents, and you're grieving because you were buying into the story of Lily and James Potter. You were buying into their sweetness and their attentiveness to their son, and you were buying into their dreams for their son's future, and you were buying into their plans of how they were going to spend time with their son, and that's all taken away, and you grieve in that first episode, and it ends with ends with McGonagall and Dumbledore. And then, you do that episode of, the second episode's like all about the Dursleys and how awful it is. And then you're grieving, like, God, this kid had the most amazing parents, and now he's with these clowns. And then, just my ideas, if they want to show you, I want to give you an idea that there's so much stuff you can do with this TV series. I hope fans look at this TV series as an amazing opportunity. And I think, Harry Potter, it's so special. Like, few stories have really stimulated people's imaginations like that story. Giving people a way to escape from the world, but not just escape, to feel re-energized and combat the world with a greater imagination. And when your imagination is really stirred up and energized, it allows you to dig into the Bible in a much more imaginative way. Things like Harry Potter, stories like Harry Potter, they really serve our exploration of the Bible. It builds our imagination. It helps us imagine, the New Testament stories, the Old Testament stories. It builds our abilities to imagine, and to really go into that world of the New Testament, the Old Testament, because, it's just one of those stories that really vividly builds our imagination. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. Lord of the Rings, Batman, Sherlock Holmes are my favorites. Harry Potter is a bit under that for me, but I still love Harry Potter. I hope more people recognize how awesome it is and how great the series can be. So that's my note for today. Happy May the 2nd. It is May the 2nd, isn't it? I don't know. But yes, that's my vlog for today. God bless you. I love you. Talk to you soon.